Okay, well, welcome to my cooking class this evening. I want to thank the Royal Oak Library for sponsoring me and having me teach through the library again. Today's recipe is a wonderful spring dish. It's a stuffed portobello mushroom. It's colorful, it's full of flavors, and it's just fantastic because right now we're in spring. Aren't we happy? Yay, spring. So during the cooking class, those who are attending, if you want to hit your mute button so there won't be any background noise, that would be wonderful. And then during the cooking class, I love audience participation. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat section. And then in the middle of the cooking class, when things are cooking, there's usually some downtime. And then I say, hey, are there any questions? And you can unmute yourself. You can ask questions. Whatever you want to do is fine. I like audience participation, makes the class a little more fun, a little more interactive, right? For those of you that have never attended one of my classes before, I am Chef Valerie Wilson. My business name is MacroVal, and my website is macroval.com. I have been teaching healthy, whole foods cooking classes for 26 years now. I am the author of 6 cookbooks. I also offer one-on-one lifestyle counseling where I can help you with your dietary needs, incorporating healthy organic whole foods, and also if you need to heal from any discomfort that might be happening in your body, I can help you with that. I'm eating dinner. I'll be back on screen. Awesome. Yeah, you can eat dinner and listen. Not a problem. And so I'm going to get started, with these stuffed portobello mushrooms. And again, feel free to ask questions or you can comment, like if I use garlic and you love garlic, you could just, say, oh my God, I love garlic, just to make the class a little more fun, right? All right, so what's in the stuffing of the stuffed portobello mushroom? Whole grains. So let's cook the whole grains first. I'm going to bring the camera over to the stove. And we're going to use 2 whole grains and we're going to cook them together this evening. I have 1/4 cup of millet. This is what millet looks like. It's little yellow balls. Many people have seen it in bird seed because they feed this to birds, although humans have been eating it for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. And then I also have 1/4 cup of quinoa. Quinoa is a smaller whole grain than millet, and it cooks up actually quicker. Now, the recipe for this evening's cooking class should be emailed to you. If you have not received the recipe, please put it in the chat. I don't have the recipe, and Susan at the Royal Oak Library can send it to you. So when you put these 2 whole grains together, we have 1/4 cup and 1/4 cup, which equals 1/2 cup of whole grains. So then you double the amount of water you're going to cook it with. So that would be 1 cup of water, which I have in my pot. I'm going to put the millet and the quinoa into the pot, and I'm going to turn this onto a high temperature. We want the water and the whole grains to boil first. When you cook whole grains, you put the whole grains in the water in the pot together and you bring it to a boil. Okay. This starts the cooking process. It starts to open up the whole grain and makes the grain more digestible when you go to eat it later. Where do you buy millet? Please email the recipe. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So Susan Clark needs the recipe. You can, me too. Cheryl, Ashley. Okay. So Cheryl and Susan need the recipe from Susan at the Royal Oak Library. All right, where do you buy millet? Excellent question. So most of the time you're going to find whole grains such as millet at health food stores. I'm in Michigan, and the Royal Oak Library is in Michigan. So in Michigan, we have the Better Health Store, we have Whole Foods, we have Fresh Time, we have Zerbo's, all great healthy stores. Now, quinoa is a little more popular And you can probably find bags of quinoa at like a Meijer or a Kroger. And of course, I always recommend organic ingredients. Now, I don't write organic in the recipe with every ingredient because that would be redundant. But if at all possible, please buy organic ingredients because we don't want pesticides and chemicals that have been sprayed on our food to get into our body because we want to live a healthy lifestyle. So choose as much organic food as you possibly can. And whole grains, it's kind of important that you get the organic version because they've done tests and studied that whole grains that are not, especially rolled oats that are not organic, they have a lot of glyphosate on them, which glyphosate is a toxic chemical that's been known to cause cancer. And so we want to stay away from that. Now it very quickly, this boiled very quickly because there isn't much in the pot. Now we turn the flame down and we put it back here on the burner. Let me get the lid. I got a lid here. You want to put a lid on it. Okay. All right, now we got to set the timer. This is going to cook for 20 minutes. Let me get the timer going here. Okay. So we went from a high hot flame to a low flame back there. And if you notice, I also have one of these flame tamers or flame diffusers. This is metal, this is wooden. You can find these on the internet. You can buy these. Now I cook a lot of whole grains all the time. So this tool is invaluable to me. You don't need to go out and buy all new pots and pans. A stainless steel pot to cook your whole grains is perfectly fine. But you might want to invest in one of these, and they're not very expensive. They're like $7 to $12. And you put this so that the flame is underneath it, the pot is on top of it. It evenly disperses the heat, so your whole grain cooks evenly. You don't accidentally scorch your whole grain when you use a flame tamer. So I use this all the time when I cook my whole grain. All right, so when you combine two grains like quinoa and millet, quinoa usually cooks for 15 minutes, millet cooks for 20. So when you combine two whole grains, you always cook it for the longer amount of time. So we're going to cook millet and quinoa for the 20 minutes as opposed to the 15 minutes that quinoa is usually done. Okay, makes sense? All right, so let me tell you about these whole grains. So whole grains are so important to give your body energy. They are a complex carbohydrate. They digest very slowly in your intestinal tract, and they release glucose very slowly in your system to give you long, sustainable energy throughout the day. That's what whole grains do. Now, all of your ancient ancestors, no matter where you came from, had a diet based in whole grains. Okay? Unfortunately, the whole grains have been refined and processed, and that's what most people eat nowadays. But we want to get back to eating healthy whole grains. Now, quinoa is the signature whole grain of summertime, which is right around the corner, which means it feeds and nurtures your brain and your heart. It is a very hardy plant. Quinoa is a very strong plant because it grows way up in the mountains where the atmosphere is thin. And so whatever the plant does out in nature, it does the same thing in your body. So if you want to be nice and strong and you want to be able to survive, quinoa is your whole grain. Quinoa is a complex carbohydrate, but it also has a high protein profile. In fact, it's a complete protein. So quinoa is a complex carbohydrate and a complete protein. It's like a whole meal in one. Contains B vitamins, contains vitamin E, which is a natural antioxidant. And quinoa, once it cooks, it's light and fluffy. Okay. Now, millet is the other whole grain. Millet is one of my favorites. Millet feeds and nurtures your spleen, pancreas, and stomach, which are your main organs in the middle of your body. that when you get stressed out, those middle organs get uptight, right? You get an upset stomach. So I call millet my anti-stress grain because it helps you deal with stress if you eat millet on a regular basis. Millet is exceptionally high in iron. So if you need iron, millet is your whole grain. Also really high in calcium. Millet also, being a complex carbohydrate, is also a great source of protein also. Millet is 100% gluten-free, so is quinoa. Both of them are gluten-free. But millet is the easiest whole grain to digest. So if I ever work with somebody in counseling that has digestive problems, millet is usually my go-to. Now, millet, when it cooks up, is beautiful and slightly sweet and creamy. So I like putting the two together when you make a stuffing. So if you think in your head, like this is a stuffed portobello mushroom, if you think of a stuffing, you kind of think of something that comes together and is kind of creamy. So the millet helps with that aspect. So we have millet and quinoa together, okay? We're gonna let that hang out and cook, and we're gonna start working on the portobello mushrooms now. So let me swing over here. And let me show you the portobello mushrooms. Now your recipe calls for 4 portobello mushrooms. So it's gonna stuff 4 portobello mushrooms. Thank you. The Royal Oak Library says the recipe's been sent. But guess what? I went to the store today and they had a package of 3 mushrooms. So I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to go ahead and go for the 4th one because whatever stuffing's left over, we'll just put on the side as a side dish. So I got 3 portobello mushrooms. Some of the skin came off when I was unwrapping it. That's why it looks kind of funky, but it's totally fine. Now I wanted to show you how I'm going to prepare the mushrooms because some people have questions about that. Now, mushrooms have some dirt on them, okay? And some people just use paper towel, but I don't like that method. I don't think it gets the dirt off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse the mushroom, but I'm going to rinse the mushroom quickly in the water because a mushroom is like a big sponge. So you don't want to put it in water or have it soak in water. It'll just soak up that water. It's like a big sponge. But if we want to get that dirt off, you just rinse it and just with your hand like this, just like this, and that'll get the dirt off of it, right? And these mushrooms really aren't that dirty. Sometimes, you know, you get white button mushrooms and there's quite a bit of dirt on them. The portobellas are pretty clean. They're not that bad. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that. We're going to take that stem out of the mushroom. Sometimes it'll just come out with your hand. See, that came out very nicely for you. Now we're not going to use the stem. We are going to discard it. Like so. That. Now I have my oven turned on to 400 degrees. So I'm heating it up. Your option is you're either going to broil the portobello mushrooms or you're going to bake them at 400 degrees. Val, is a little dirt okay to consume? It's hard to get all of it off of the grill of the mushroom. Yes, absolutely, Cheryl. Great question. Dirt is full of minerals and it's fantastic for you. Guess what? We humans have been eating dirt since we came into existence. It's part of our food. Don't freak out about it. Yeah, don't freak out about it. Absolutely, you don't have to worry about it. All right, so we're going to season the mushroom. Yeah, we're going to season the mushroom with olive oil, some tamari, which is our salty condiment. This is made when they naturally ferment soybeans. They mix the soybeans with sea salt. They put weight on top of it and it ferments. This is your healthy version of soy sauce. Soy sauce has MSG in it. It's not naturally fermented. We don't want soy sauce. We want tamari. And this is brown rice vinegar. This is a nice, sweet, pungent, sour vinegar. And then I have to tell you, this is my favorite spice combo. I got basil, I have thyme, and I have paprika. Now you can get the smoked paprika or you can get the non-smoked paprika. It's up to you if you like that smoky taste, which some recipes I do like the smoky taste, but kind of up to you. All right, so we're gonna put these mushrooms on a baking sheet. Now I'm using a piece of parchment paper just so it's gonna be easy to clean up later. And I'm gonna take olive oil and I'm just gonna drizzle the olive oil over the mushroom. And I'm gonna flip it over. And I am gonna drizzle a little bit of olive oil on the bottom. Okay, when I say a little bit of olive oil, I am literally probably putting a quarter of a teaspoon on both sides. So that's like a half a teaspoon on the whole mushroom. That's it. That's all you need. All right. Oh, I forgot the garlic. We got to put the garlic on here. Oh, we have to have garlic on our portobello mushrooms, right? So we actually are going to use 4 garlic cloves because the recipe calls for 4 caps. Like I said, so you want 1 garlic clove per cap. Since I only have 3, I'm still going to use 4. No, I think I'm going to use 3 because they're relatively big garlic cloves. I'm just going to use 3. So the rule of thumb is 1 garlic clove per cap. Now, maybe you've seen this before, but this is pretty cool. This is how you get the skin off of garlic. You put the skin on the cutting board, put your knife on top of it, and you go like that, and it cracks the skin, and the skin just comes right off like that. That's how you get it off. Now, see that butt end right there? That's got a hard texture to it. We can't eat that. So we're going to cut that off. Here, I got some garlic skins on the cutting board. Now I am going to put water on my cutting board because the water helps so the cutting board doesn't end up smelling like garlic, right? It fills in the pores of the wood so the wood doesn't absorb the color or the odor of what you're chopping. All right, so let's do 3 garlic cloves. I'm going to cut that little butt off because we don't like that. And then you're just going to chop the garlic up into really small pieces. So I take all 3 of the cloves, put them on the cutting board, and then I just chop. And I keep chopping until they're in really small pieces. That's minced garlic. Garlic has been eaten and used for thousands of years. Herbal medicine and ancient herbal texts highly praise garlic for all the healing properties. Antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal, antiseptic. So that means that, I don't know, it's antibiotic. So anytime you have an infection, garlic is your go-to. Antiviral, if you're ever sick with a flu or the cold, garlic is your go-to. Antiseptic, if you have a wound that won't heal and it's just won't heal, garlic is your go-to. It's just a fantastic food. It's so healing. But you know what's great about garlic? The flavor of garlic. That's why we're putting it on the mush. That's why we put garlic on so many things, is because of the flavor. So let's put a little bit of garlic right there. So do you ladies like garlic? Is garlic your favorite go-to? Usually in a cooking class, everybody goes, oh, I love garlic. But there are a few people that they aren't as crazy about it as the rest of us. But that's going to impart a lot of flavor into the portobello mushroom with that garlic. Yes, yummy, love garlic. Oh, I'm one of those people who can't handle a lot of garlic. That's strictly fine. You know, you can make this recipe without garlic, or you could just put a little pinch of garlic powder. You wouldn't have to use the whole actual garlic. And that's the great thing about attending a cooking class and learning the recipe. You get the basics of it, the techniques of what you're doing, and then you can personalize it and you can add your seasonings the way you like it. All right, so we're going to sprinkle a little bit of tamari on there. And like so. And we're actually gonna season the stuffing that's going on top of it, so you'll have more seasoning. So I just sprinkled a little bit. Now I sprinkle more tamari than brown rice vinegar. You only need just a splash of the brown rice vinegar because it's like that pungent sour flavor. It's the underlying. What about roasting a head of garlic first to mellow it? Absolutely, Cheryl. Roasted garlic. I love roasted garlic. Yeah, you could put roasted garlic on here, and then the flavor is not so pungent. Excellent. Yes. All right. Now we're going to put some basil, sprinkle some basil on there. We're going to sprinkle some thyme. Thyme has antiviral and antiseptic properties too. And paprika. I like paprika because it gives it a little bit of spice, but it's not over the top like burn your tongue spice. And basil, I have to admit, is my all-time favorite. I absolutely adore basil because of its flavor. It's wonderful. So this is what they look like right now. I am going to put them in a 400-degree oven for 10 minutes. So we're going to start cooking the mushroom first, okay? Or if you want to broil them, when you broil them, it's like 500 degrees and the heat is on top, and then you only need 5 minutes if you're going to broil them. So you can bake or broil them, but you're at a high temperature for the mushrooms. I don't know about you, I have to ask everybody in the class, but broiling food is a lot of fun for certain things. But it gets your oven at such a hot temperature that it heats up your kitchen a lot. And usually when I broil something, even if I just broil it for 5 minutes, my smoke detectors go off. So I don't know. I put it in the oven at 400 degrees. It's a little more mellow way of doing the mushrooms, right? So you don't have to worry about that. Mushrooms, excellent source of protein. Most people don't realize the unassuming mushroom because, you know, sometimes you just chop up mushrooms and throw them here and season them here. They're an excellent source of protein, okay? In fact, they're high in protein. They also contain vitamin B2, contain zinc. They are known for having anti-cancer properties, the mushrooms. They have a very high water content, which means they cleanse toxins out of your system, which is very important too. Let's see, what else can I tell you about? Oh, vitamin D. There you go. Vitamin D in mushrooms, potassium. And mushrooms should be cooked because they have a very tough cell wall, which essentially is indigestible. Your body really can't digest it or break it down. But if you cook them, that changes. I've been cooking everything in my air fryer instead of heating up the oven. That's an excellent alternative, Cheryl, to use your air fryer. Now, I did not test this recipe in an air fryer before teaching it, but I am sure it would absolutely work. Yes. Okay, so we have that part of it done. Now we need to work on some vegetables, more vegetables for the filling. So we're going into springtime, right? So we're going to have vegetables that are a little lighter in energy, a little more water content. So first of all, we have beautiful scallions, or what are called green onions. So these are lighter in energy than onions. Onions, you know, are the bulb, but you could substitute onion if you didn't have scallions. But now when you go to the store and buy scallions, do you see how this piece is wilted? I usually take that off. I don't use the green wilted pieces because people ask me, like, you know, do you use the green part? I do use the green part unless it's wilted. Then I don't. Let's put a little cutting water on the cutting board. We're going to slice the scallion into thin slices. So the first thing I'm going to do is just cut off the butt end. You don't need to use that. Get a bowl. And just thin rounds for the scallion. Scallions, onions, green onions, they all have anti-inflammatory properties. Inflammation in your body could result in arthritis pain, joint pain, muscle pains. Anytime you have pain, it's usually inflammation in your system. So anytime we can eat anti-inflammatory foods, it's a step in the right direction. There we go. See, so when I get to the end, the little last part, I don't use that because that's usually wilted. So we have 2 scallions here. Set that aside. And then we have, now these vegetables are going to get grated. I thought that they cook up faster. They're a little lighter energy if you grate them. So I have my food processor here with the grater blade in it, all ready to go. He's over here. Yellow summer squash. We're moving into summer. Beautiful yellow color. This is high in potassium, contains iron. It's one of the first vegetables that comes out of your garden. So delicious. You like yellow summer squash? All right, that's the timer for the millet and quinoa. So let's go check that. You know, that timer was set for the millet and quinoa. I didn't set a timer for the mushrooms, but that's okay. I'll keep a close eye on it. Do probably need to see here. All right. How do we check to see if the whole grains are done? We lift up the lid and we look and see that all the water has been absorbed and that the whole grains are soft. It looks perfect. It looks beautiful. All right, so let me show you this. All right, so what I do to check the whole grains is I just very gently move the whole grains aside and I can see the bottom of the pot. There's no water left. All the water has been absorbed by the whole grains and the millet is soft. The quinoa is soft, so it's done. Now, what I like to do is I like to leave the lid on and let this sit for about 5 minutes because the residual heat that's in there, the whole grain is still cooking. See if the water is absorbed. Cheryl guessed. Oh, Cheryl guessed how to tell if the whole grain is done. Excellent. Yes, the water is absorbed. Now let's troubleshoot this. Let's say after 20 minutes, you still have water in the bottom. You can let it cook for another couple minutes. That's perfectly fine. Now, if you have a lot of water left after 20 minutes, that means the heat on your stove was not high enough and the grain did not get cooked. Now, let's say after 10, 15 minutes, whoo, all the water's gone and you run the risk of burning your whole grain. Well, that means the heat underneath the pan is way too hot, too high, because it should take 20 minutes for this to get done. It might take 25 and it might take 17, but 20 is the average. That's how long you want to cook it for. All right. Meanwhile, as long as we're over at the stove, those vegetables for the filling, we are going to saute. So get yourself a nice saute pan, put your heat at medium. Take a little bit of olive oil, not much. There's literally maybe a 1/4 teaspoon. You don't need a lot of oil. It just helps to flavor the dish. It helps to brown the veggies. We're going to put the scallions in there first. We're going to put just a pinch of sea salt in there. So each time we cook the, am I sauteing it with sea salt or tamari? Maybe, let me see here. Sea salt, that's what I thought. Yep. Seasoning it with sea salt. I thought that's what I had. Each time you saute a vegetable, you put just a little bit of sea salt or a salty condiment, brings out the flavor of the vegetable, and you're layering the flavors as you cook, and it's really delicious at the end. Right? So we're going to let that hang out and saute. Doesn't need to saute for long, just a couple minutes. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. But for right now, let's get yellow summer squash. We need a half a cup grated. Put this in here. Let's check and see if that's half a cup. It looks like it is. Yep. It's a tiny bit over a half a cup, but, and that was a pretty small yellow summer squash. So you don't need that much of the vegetable. I'm going to put that in a bowl and keep using this measuring cup because now we need a half a cup of zucchini. Zucchini is very similar to the yellow summer squash, high water content. The difference is the color, obviously. Zucchini is beautiful green. I have a KitchenAid food processor that is so confusing to use. Sorry about that. This is a Cuisinart. I used to have a KitchenAid because the KitchenAid was pink. And of course, pink is my color. But I prefer the Cuisinart. It's so easy to use. You got on and off jets. It's just, yeah, easy to use. All right. And last but not least, we have one small carrot that's going to get grated. Carrot gives us the beautiful orange color, gives us calcium, vitamin C. All right, that's it for the veggies. Let's swing back over to the stove. So that we got a light sizzle going on with the scallion. They are bright green. That's it. That's all we need. Get yourself a bowl. You're going to saute each one of the vegetables one at a time and then remove them out of the pan and continue using the same pan to saute. Okay. So we put the carrots in there. Little pinch of sea salt. I don't think we need to add any more oil because there's still a little bit of oil in the pan. I only add a little more oil when the pan gets dry. Okay. So this is a saute technique that I want to teach you because some people just keep piling vegetables in the saute pan and pretty soon your saute pan gets really crowded. And then the vegetables, the water content of the vegetables start to come out when your pan is too crowded. And then your saute is soggy. And we don't want it soggy. We want the vegetables to be sauteed, but yet still have some texture and still be crisp. All right, hang out here, watch the carrots. That was the timer for the portobello mushrooms. So let me go grab those. Show you what they look like here. I have to tell you, it smells fantastic in here right now. So there's the mushrooms that have been cooked for 10 minutes. You see, look at all that juice coming out of them. Yum. We'll set this over here for a minute. That's what we're gonna stuff. All right, while the vegetables are sauteing now, are you using a nonstick pan, Val? Yeah, this is what's called a scan pan. S-C-A-N-P-A-N. S-C-A-N-P-A-N, scan pan. Type it here. So scan pans are rated #1 best saute pans because of the even distribution of heat and the best to saute. They are non-stick pans, but they don't have Teflon or any chemicals in them. They are titanium at the speed of light shot into the pan. They have a lifetime guarantee, and they are the best saute pans ever. They are relatively expensive, but I have been using this pan for over 20 years. So once you buy a pan, you're going to have that pan for a long time. That's what the sauteed carrots look like. We're going to add that to our bowl. And now the saute pan kind of dry. So let's just add a little olive oil. And we'll go with our zucchini. Put that in there like so. Little pinch of sea salt. There we go. All right. So while the vegetables are sauteing, we do have a little bit of time. If anybody has questions, now's a great time. Yes, the cheap ones don't last. Yeah, the cheap pans don't last. And Teflon is a toxic substance. In fact, if you have a bird in your house, if you have a pet bird and you heat the Teflon pans to a high temperature, the fumes that go into your house will kill that bird. It's kind of sad, but if it'll kill the bird, what is it doing to your body? You know, if you put food in your body that was cooked on that. Yeah, so it's a toxic substance. We don't want that. And if you have Teflon pans for a long time, some of that coating starts to come off, right? And we definitely don't want to eat it. So the toxic substance, we don't want that at all. All right, great questions, ladies. Totally appreciate all the interaction and the questions. Do you have any more? Zucchini cooks up very fast. That's it. Very quickly. Now we're going to go with the yellow summer squash. Little sea salt. A tad bit more. Yeah. I'm cleaning up a little bit to make room for the next thing we're doing. All right, well, also in the stuffing is going to be sunflower seeds. These are raw sunflower seeds. So I'm going to toast them quickly. The yellow summer squash is done. See, the yellow summer squash and the zucchini do not take long to cook at all. That quick, boom, they're done. Put your heat at a low. Take your sunflower seeds and just put them in there like so. Put a little pinch of sea salt and just toast them just for a minute. So what does toasting the seeds do? #1, it brings out the flavor of the seeds and makes them more delicious, especially with that little pinch of sea salt in there. Really helps. All nuts and seeds, that means sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, pecans, cashews, all nuts and seeds should never, ever be eaten raw. They contain a particular enzyme that makes them hard to digest. So you want to roast them, toast them, or soak them and then your body can digest those nuts and seeds. One of the things that I love about your class is that I feel comfortable seeing your kitchen. It's less intimidating than one of the high-end kitchens that few can afford. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, it's not a high-end kitchen, but it's definitely functional. Yeah. Yes, very easy watching. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate that. So nuts and seeds like sunflower seed, this is your healthy, good quality, unsaturated fat type of fat that your body needs. You need fat so that your joints and your ligaments are flexible. You need fat to utilize and digest certain vitamins and minerals. And sunflower seeds are also high in calcium and high in iron. And they add a little bit of crunch to this filling that we're creating, sunflower seeds. You could use sesame seeds or other seeds too if you want. And I mentioned you shouldn't eat nuts and seeds raw. And, you know, when you go and buy food, there's this marketing ploy that they put raw on certain things because they think people in their head think, oh, it's raw, it's better. Not necessarily. For instance, if you buy raw cashews, there is no such thing as raw cashews. The cashew, as it grows on the plant, they pick it, and that nut needs to be cooked so that the human body can digest it, okay? So even if you're buying a package of raw cashews at the store, those cashews have been boiled so that your body can digest them, okay? But they put raw on there because they think people are going to see it and think that it's healthier, right? But then once you buy the cashews, usually if you want to impart more flavor, you can roast the cashews and add a little sea salt. You know, that's always really good. But sometimes people buy things and it says raw on there and they think they're getting raw. They're not. Like raw cacao, raw cocoa bean. That's another thing. The cocoa bean, when they pick it from the tree, you can't eat it. The human body can't digest it. It needs to be roasted or it needs to be boiled. So every time you buy chocolate, whether it's labeled raw cacao or whatever, there is some type of cooking process that happens. You just have to for the human body to digest it. I just find things like that interesting. All right, so that's the seeds. We just toasted them a little bit, and now we can put them in here with everything else. And we can also add our millet and our quinoa. What about flaxseed? I grind them and put them in my oatmeal. Should I be toasting the whole seeds first? Well, if you put them in your oatmeal should have been cooked. And if they're cooked in with the oatmeal, you're good to go. Okay. Flaxseed, the whole flaxseed, actually the human body can't digest it. You need to grind the flaxseed up and you get flaxseed meal, and then the body can digest it. And I always put flaxseed meal in dishes that are cooked. So if it was going in the oatmeal, just cook it in the oatmeal with it. I use flaxseed meal like cakes and stuff like that. In fact, I'm teaching how to make a lemon cake in April. It's one of my cooking class on Wednesday evenings, and I use flaxseed meal in that recipe. Here are the whole grains. We're going to add that to our bowl, like so. All right, let's move the camera back over here. It's easier to work over here. And we have arugula to add to the stuffing too. All right, so I have to admit, like, you're supposed to eat a lot of leafy green vegetables, right? And kale and collards are great. I use them in my cooking. Right now it's springtime, so I usually use dandelion greens too. But my all-time favorite is arugula. Have you had arugula? So this is in the cabbage family, and it's one of the first greens that come up for springtime. And arugula has this unique taste. It's like when you eat it, it has like a pungent, like an almost pungent flavor. Yeah, Cheryl loves arugula. It's my favorite. So I put a half a cup of greens in the filling for the mushroom, but if you didn't have arugula, you could use parsley. You could use chopped up kale or something like that, but arugula is my favorite. Now, when you measure greens, I wanted to point this out to you. So greens are light and fluffy, and parsley is the same way. So when you put it in a measuring cup, you want to put it in the measuring cup like this, a half a cup, right? And it's kind of, you don't push it down, but it is kind of compacted and it's a little bit filling over the top. So that way you get like a half a cup, but you get a nice amount of arugula. Let's put some water in the cutting board. I'm just going to chop up the arugula. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is in the cabbage family. And anything that's in the cabbage family, any vegetable, is known for its anti-cancer properties. So that would be arugula has anti-cancer properties. And put that in there like so. Now I didn't saute the arugula. You don't need to saute it. Just having it, we're going to put the mushrooms back in the oven and bake them again. That's going to be just fine. And you can put arugula in salads too. You can eat arugula raw in salad, probably fine. I have some really cool things about arugula too. I was so much health benefits. Let's see, folic acid, vitamin K for your bones, high in vitamin C, but it's in the cabbage family, so that's not surprising. Vitamin E, your natural antioxidant. Excellent brain food, right? And arugula has an antioxidant in it called nitric oxide. So it helps your body make nitric oxide. And the reason why I mention this is because when your body gets exposed to EMFs, and you know what? We're all exposed to EMFs. Cell phones, computers, doing this Zoom cooking class, you can't get away from them. This is just the way life is right now. But when you consume foods with nitric oxide, such as arugula, it helps to it helps your body so that it can combat the EMFs that are coming at it, the exposure of EMFs. So when I found that out about arugula, it became even more of my favorite, right? Would that help lower blood pressure? Absolutely. Blood pressure, yeah. So this whole recipe would be fantastic if you had high blood pressure, because the zucchini has potassium in it. The whole grains are high fiber. Millet also would be great for anybody with high blood pressure. High fiber foods are fantastic for that. All right, so now it's time to mix this together. Let's get our seasonings. We have 1 tablespoon of the salty tamari, 1 tablespoon of the sweet sour brown rice vinegar. We have 1/2 teaspoon of a sea salt. And then we have, remember the quantities, let's see. Yep, 1 1/2. All right, so we got 1 teaspoon of basil, 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. Those are our seasonings. Now we're going to mix this up. Yum, yum, yum. Make sure you get all mixed up, and it's very, very colorful. Now you could eat this right now, right out of the bowl. Yum. But we are going to stuff the mushrooms with it, right? You know what happened when I put those mushrooms in the oven? These small ones like shrunk, but that's okay. We're going to take the stuffing and you just pile it on top of the mushroom, and you can be generous. Like I said, now the original recipe calls for 4, but like I said, I got 3, but that's okay. And usually the portobello mushrooms are a little bit bigger than this too. They're usually like this nice big one right here. These two are small. Now the rest of this, I could probably just put on the side and I could bake it in the oven, or I could keep some of this right here and eat it right now, right? So you can eat it right now, or you can put it in the oven and bake it. So then it goes back into the 400-degree oven for another 10 minutes, or if you want to broil it, it's only 5 minutes. So basically the food is already cooked. You're putting it back into the oven or back into the broiler to enhance the flavor, bring out the flavor, make the dish hot and ready to serve. That's what you're doing, okay? And it does get a little bit of crispiness on the top also when you put it back into the oven, right? All right, so any questions? We got any questions left? Okay, it looks fantastic. Thank you, Cheryl. Write this on your calendar. Monday, June 26th, I will be back teaching through the Royal Oak Library. Another virtual cooking class. This one is going to be a quinoa cucumber corn salad. Okay, so that's June 26th. And we'll work, Susan and I will work the Royal Oak Library so that when people sign up, they won't have an issue, hopefully next time, like Cheryl did. Hey, and then before June, when I'm back at the Royal Oak Library, please stay connected with me. My website, macrovelle.com, has so much information. It's got all of my upcoming cooking classes. There's also a link on my website for my blog. I have a blog called I Am the Creator of My Health, with lots of different topics, not only food, but also topics about doing things that you love, doing things for your soul, for your body, because it's all about health. I just recently did one of my blogs on yoga, talking about yoga. And I have a friend who teaches yoga cooking classes. Her name is Patricia. And I just interviewed her on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Chef Valerie Wilson. And every Tuesday I go live on YouTube and Facebook. I'm either going to do a recipe or I'm going to interview someone. And I just interviewed Patricia, where she showed us some basic yoga poses, which I absolutely love. I've been doing yoga for over 20 years. How does she cook and pose at the same time, Cheryl? That's funny. Yeah, that would be like doing a yoga pose and cooking. Maybe that's something I have to do in the future, right? Yeah, so I adore yoga. I've been doing it for over 20 years. So that was nice. So yeah, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can stay connected to me with that. I host a radio show twice a month. Right now on my website, the recipe of the month is lotus root ginger soup. And the last radio show I did, I told all the health benefits of lotus root. So there's lots of ways that you can stay connected with me and you can learn more about healthy whole foods, because this is a journey. You got to learn, you got to create, you got to have fun in the kitchen, right? And Wednesdays, I teach cooking classes on a regular basis. So this Wednesday, which would be March 29th, I'm teaching a pasta dish with sauerkraut and a tahini dressing. And on April 5th, I have both an in-person and virtual class. It's a hybrid class. So I'm in Westland and you guys are in Royal Oak. It only takes about a half hour to get here. The fun thing about the in-person class is you get to eat the food after we make it together. It's a Easter dinner featuring a dish that has many layers, roasted spring vegetables, millet, pinto beans, a Mexican carrot sauce, and I'm also teaching how to make soy vegan jalapeno cheese. And it's like a layered dish for our Easter dinner. There's also a side of asparagus and cornbread. So that one's much longer. That class is from 6 to 8:30. So we do 3 recipes. So all that information is on macroval.com. Also, my 6 cookbooks are there too. And so there's lots of ways that we can stay connected, and you can learn more about healthy whole foods cooking, right? All right. So
Thank
who's
you,
going to
Val.
make this dish? Yes.
Thank you so much. It's been a delightful evening in spite of our challenges. And I better mute myself because it's noisy here in the library. I had to cover the desk and do the, introductions and so forth. But it was a pleasure to have you here again, and thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Royal Oak Library. I greatly appreciate you hosting me, and thank you, ladies, for attending. Are you ladies going to make this recipe? Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Let me know how it turns out. Yes. Thank you. If you make the recipe, hey, send me an email and say, hey, I made the recipe, Val. Can we see the finished dish? Yes. Though I just don't have it the last 10 minutes, in the oven, because we don't have time for that. But this is what it looks like, the finished dish. The stuffed portobello mushrooms.